Hey, welcome back to Wise Guys Barbecue Podcast. I'm Charlie here, and I'm here with my partners in crime, Big Vin Picaro and Big Bob Bowman. And we got a great show. We are going to talk to the one and only Mr. Brisket today.
I'm so excited.
And this is
Bob,
going to be
thank you for setting this up. This is awesome.
I love them.
Bob has been using these guys for a while now, and he raves about their product and their service, and we can't wait to talk to them.
Yeah. No, I mean, I want to cut into them now, but we just, I think we should. Want to just cut into them?
Yeah,
all right.
Let's get them on now.
All right, guys, stay tuned. Listen to this interview. You're going to love it. All right, folks, here they are. Hank and Aaron from Mister Brisket in Cleveland Heights. As you know, we've been dying to get him on the show. Bob Bowman has dealt with these folks quite a bit in his competition career. And these are the guys. If you want your competition meets ready to go for your next event, these are the guys to talk to. And we're dying to hear about how they got started, where they got started, right? And the story behind that and everything else they want to tell us. So welcome, guys. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks.
That's great. So, Bob, what do you got on point for these guys?
One thing that intrigued me is so it's Sanford, and that's your stepfather, Hank?
That's correct.
He started the business.
He started the business in 1974.
And I was really trying to figure out how.
There we go.
You're good.
I was really trying to figure out how someone with a doctorate in psychology got into the meat business. Because I guess you deal with a lot of meatheads, and you're like, I'd rather butcher meat.
Well, I'll start. My mom married my stepdad, and his parents had a small grocery store in Cleveland itself. And what happened was his father died, and his mom closed down the business. She had a couple of wholesale accounts she held on to. So my stepdad, being newly married, highly educated, and without a job, was trying to make a little cash. So she said, "Why don't you take care of these accounts?" So he was going to into Cleveland, into the food terminal areas, and back then they still had some slaughterhouses around. Now they're all out a little further. There's no longer any in downtown Cleveland. Yeah, the next thing you knew, he was buying stuff, bringing it home, and selling to people in Cleveland proper. What I would say is that he was the first guy in Northeast Ohio selling high quality meat. He was the first guy selling USDA prime on a regular basis in Northeast Ohio. And he started doing home delivery, and they grew from there.
Hank, is that the Meatmobile? Was that what he was driving around?
Yeah, that was the Meatmobile. It's funny because that's our whole business is based on that. That's still our trademark.
Can't make that stuff up.
That's awesome.
Right. So
he used to actually drive that thing around and go to drop off and pick up.
I was too young, but my stepdad used to do that. Everything was based upon home delivery.
Awesome.
So that was how it all got started.
So
if you'd like me to, I'd be
No, I was just gonna say. So he saw a niche, and just jumped on it.
Well, yeah. I mean, back in the 70s, butcher shops and grocery stores, at least in Cleveland, weren't selling high quality meats. So he just was like, I wonder if there's an interest. And he's really a foodie. He was a guy who loves to cook to this day and loves, just talking food all the time. Every time he and my mom take a trip, and they're in their upper 80s and they still travel. He all he does is do Facebook posts about where he's eaten and what he's eaten and what he thinks about what he's eaten. So, that was it. Yeah, he found a niche for high quality meats, which is still what we're all about. So,
Fantastic.
I can attest that you do sell some high quality meat, even though I've only purchased from you the competition, the Wagyu brisket,
right.
The ribs, and things like that. But I mean, the quality that you guys are known for stands true.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of places out there that are selling high caliber stuff. In the I was trying to stay up with the trends, and I realized we needed a website. And this is right around 2000, and there was this crazy thing called the internet, and I was trying to pay attention to it so I could figure out how this might, be useful in business. And my stepdad up to that point, he had to be kicked and dragged into buying a computer, let alone this internet thing. He always thought a Rolodex and a pen were all he needed, and a telephone. So I wrote the copy for the website and turned it over to some guy, and I used the word USDA Prime a number of times, especially with reference to briskets. And as comp grew, guys would go online and look for USDA Prime briskets. Well, to this day, if you do a search on USDA Prime briskets, I come up on the first page.
Oh, wow.
And, people pay a lot of money for that.
Yep.
Yeah.
So you can hire me. I'll do it for a lot less. So that was, I started to get known a little bit in the comp community as a guy who could provide, good briskets. And from there, I met a guy named John Gamble in Lebanon, Ohio, who was doing something called Historic Barbecue. He said to me, this is what people are looking for when they're looking for a brisket. And he explained to me they want it to be thicker, and they, what they're looking for in marbling. And then he pushed me into getting into the Wagyu end of it, at a time when no one in my region, at least Northeast Ohio, was selling it. And I was fortunate to get into that, to get into Wagyu early, at least early as in terms of Ohio.
Wow.
And so everything sort of moved along, and I was always selling briskets, and I had some highs and lows with that. And then Aaron came on board, I want to say around 2021.
Yeah.
And what Aaron said was, it's nice we're selling briskets, but I bet we could sell some other stuff. And he started looking for a better rib, and he looked for better pork in general. And then he came up with this whole idea that we could trim chicken thighs. So I have become the largest employer of chicken thigh trimming in Cleveland, Ohio. It's
Bob and I were literally
well
just talking about that.
I still can't believe.
But in all seriousness, I mean, the biggest innovation that he came up with was this idea of a comp box.
Yep.
Let's give everyone everything they need for a KCBS event. Let's put it all in one box, make it all good. I think that's been a huge asset to our business.
Do you have an idea of how many actual competitors that source you right now? Do you have a list of them? And
how many? I mean, I could give you. There's. Well, I would say somewhere in the 200 to 300 range.
oh my goodness!
Well, remember, they're not all buying everything from me. If it was,
Right.
that's.
I know how glorified those competitors could be. Do you actually have different requests, different cuts, different pamperings you have to do for every one of those competitors, or do you just no?
The truth is, they're an easy group of guys to deal with by and large. I mean, I grew up dealing in this business. I should say I grew up dealing with
Did he just call me pampered?
customers on the east side of Cleveland.
Yeah.
And plenty of them were far more difficult. And I mean, it's easy to understand what guys want in barbecue. Aaron brought a level of expertise that I didn't have to that, and I'm grateful for that. But we all know. Listen, I've yet to ever receive a phone call from a guy saying, "I want a skinny brisket with crappy marrow." Okay, that's no one's ever suggested that, right? I wish they would. It would be a lot easier. That's the first thing you do when you get a big batch of briskets in, and everyone in the business would, they don't want to say this out loud, but the first thing you're doing is you're looking at them going, how many of these are comp worthy?
Yeah.
How many of these can I sell to guys? And then you're like, okay, hopefully it's a good amount, because every batch is a little different. These aren't widgets, they're not being manufactured somewhere. So.
Yep.
Aaron, have you ever competed? Right. Do you do any competitions? Yeah, you do?
Yeah.
Oh, good for you.
Competing under Go Big or Barbecue since 2014.
Wow.
Picked us up
That's-
in Michigan this past weekend. We got 9th in chicken, 10th in ribs, 7th in brisket, and 9th overall.
When we say we,
It's him.
we is Aaron and whoever Aaron's cooking with. Okay. Right. Well, Hank's got some financial interest, I guess. But no, when he goes and does well, or just when he goes and he's an ambassador for the business. He does a terrific job talking to guys, asking them how they're doing and what what's of interest to them. And we did the Spring Fling was a terrific event for us because not only was Aaron participating and performing quite well, I might add, but he was bringing meat for half the teams.
Yeah, right.
I mean, we were a sponsor, so there was give and take, but that's we like doing that. We like being involved in as many barbecue events as we can reasonably participate in some sort of sponsorship level.
Aaron, give us some background on you. How'd you get it started in all this as a pitmaster?
I think just like everybody else that was watching Pitmasters on Discovery Channel in 2010. My mom said, "Let's go check one of these out." So we went. She saw the episode with Big Bob Gibson. They went in their restaurant and they made them a bunch of exotic meats. And she thought that's what Big Bob Gibson's was. So we drove down when they had the Decatur comp in 2010 and checked it out and quickly learned that you don't get to eat any competitors' food when you go down to a competition. So, so that's where it kind of kicked off. And then Cincinnati had their first comp ACBS in 2014. So I did the backyard division there and came in dead last. That was fun. But turned around next year and got first overall pork and fifth overall in competition.
Really?
So,
Wow.
from there, it kind of just kind of grew. Next year was we did a Master Series comp. And the first one's always kind of humbling. And that's kind of where I learned that you shouldn't trim at the comp on an asphalt on a stainless steel table. So, but that's when I started dating my wife, who's from Cleveland, and also where I met John Gamble and Tony Bruns from Historic Barbecue. And they said, "Hey, you should talk to this Hank guy up in Cleveland about Wagyu briskets next time you do competition." And so that's kind of where the Hank and Aaron came into it, as I was an employee or a customer first, and then an employee later. But that's where I kind of met Hank that fall. He went up, and I've just been competing since. We took a couple years off in between like 2018 and 21, just between having kids and COVID and all that stuff. So that but that's also when I developed and got our sauce bottles and our roast bottles. So that's where that drove that. And then 2021, I was tired of working at home on a laptop, and I said, "Hank, it's time to do it." And we jumped in here, and my first thing was KCBS changed the rules on pork. So the first thing was we were cutting collars off of pork and selling those. I was actually shaping actual money muscles out when that first started. And then it was like we were just sitting on like 40 other halves of pork butt at a time. Cleveland's not a big pulled pork town. We could barely give it away sometimes.
Wow.
So
I was calling a lot of Chinese restaurants and
Sure.
seeing,
so
Make
then
you a deal?
they were right.
Yeah, then we moved
Big
in,
deal.
We found the collars. I got a hold of Wichita Packing on their ribs. Finally found a source to get them in here. And then fall of 23, some guy placed an online order. And said, "Can you competition trim these thighs for me?" And I was like, "Sure, we'll give that a shot." And I did it. I think we only, and I was like, "We can do this more." And I just put a post out like Mister Brisket does trim thighs and question mark, and then put Mister Brisket does trim thighs with an exclamation point. And that got like almost 100,000 views.
Wow.
That posted. It was one of our bigger posts. And and then at first there's always is that cheating? Is that this? Is that that? But I'm 2 years almost into it. It's just become almost normal for guys to buy the thighs, which I think is really cool. We took 32 teams for the meetup to Michigan for the second year in a row. I was joking, my 800-pound trailer with 800 pounds of meat in it. So
How many thighs do you trim? How many pounds of thighs do you trim?
So we bring in 200 pounds a week on average.
Wow.
So Michael, who just said bye to us, does most of the trimming now. The man's a machine. He does 20 pounds an hour.
and we've trained his son as well.
Yeah, he's and going from that's the one thing that's been really cool is going from me doing it almost exclusively to we had another guy, Robbie, who did it, and then Mike did it. It's nice to train people and see the growth with it, and be able to grow more with it. Last year we did about 13,000 pies, give or take on the math there.
So 200 pounds, 200 pounds a week, and each one is what, 4 ounces?
4 to 5 ounces is our average. Yeah, we basically out of a 20-pound box, you're getting 28 to 30 pies. So
Wow.
we're
That's a
averaging
lot of trim.
300. I think this week we're shipping out 465.
Unreal.
So
Amazing.
it's and briskets. I mean, on deck, I've got 25 comp flats to trim on Monday when the truck comes in. So that's the other cool thing is the trim brisket side of it. We're really growing that side too. And guys, I think what I would say is I'm giving you the best canvas available to do your cook with.
Yeah.
One thing I'll jump in for 10 seconds. When Aaron came up with the idea of trimming thighs and trimming briskets, he's done a lot of discussion on these topics via Facebook and other social media outlets. And there have always been a lot of people who were enthusiastic, and there have always been some who said, that you should do it yourself, and this is cheating. Well, not necessarily cheating, but they sort of took the purist approach, and I understand why they feel that way. But what I said to him then, and I'll say it right now, is people will their time is money, and they don't want to spend an enormous amount of time doing prep if they don't need to, and that's been helpful to us.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah. So
I mean,
if you have
everybody's
a
doing the
phone-
same thing, right?
everybody's
always
basically
trimming the thighs the same. You guys have some special way you're trimming the thighs, or is it, the same
Not
way
really.
everybody else is doing it?
No.
We square them. Our process is the skin's off. We scrape the skin. We pull the vein. We square them up. Knock off the knuckle. Turn around and rewrap them, and and do that another 300 times.
Yeah.
We put them eight to a pack, and Michael does so many. And Michael's a very well trained chef. A lot of years under his belt, so he kind of can his eyes on the weight, basically spot on. One thing I like is like when I'm competing, and I try to do as much as I can, is I just go on the shelf and grab some pack. I want to kind of test in the field what we're shipping to guys. And so like this weekend, we put an average weight on the pack, so you'll see a scribble mark of 45. That means the whole 8-pack is 45 ounces.
Yeah.
So I try to grab 2 45-ounce packs, take them and go, and out of those 2 packs, we pulled a ninth place, on very consistent chicken.
Right.
That's, and then the briskets, I do all the briskets, so I'm trying to trim those off of a brisket caddy, assuming everybody's using a caddy or it wants that width. Is kind of where we're going with that.
Yep.
So, I mean, one of the things we always talk about is, where do you source your product from? Do you have several areas? I mean, you guys don't have a slaughterhouse and a farm. Where are you getting your stuff from?
So briskets off of Imperial Wagyu. They're based out of Nebraska. Chicken is exclusively Springer Mountain Farms. We bring them in through a distributor. Ribs, we have Wichita Packing or Prairie Fresh Prime ribs are what we offer there. And they, and I will say on the ribs, they both offer their own uniqueness to themselves. Wichita Packing, rack to rack, are the exact same rib, whereas Prairie Fresh Primes, you might have a difference between rack and rack with the marbling great. So it's kind of, the marbling is great on the Wichita's too, they're Duroc ribs, but those are 2 great options for guys. And then the collars are Prairie Fresh. All right, so I mean, that's been the crazier thing is the volume of it all. This past week, we brought in a truckload of Wagyu last Monday, and between our online orders, the call-in orders, and all the briskets I took to Michigan, where we were out 4 days. So figuring that part of it out has been, a little bit of a learning curve, but overall, I mean, all of our suppliers have been great. That's the one thing. We have a great relationship with our chicken supplier that gets in Mountain Farms, and the Wichita guys are great. If they ever have any questions, they've supported us, and it's been fun to grow with it all.
So I'm going to ask you an economics kind of question, because I'm hearing this around the season here in New England has just started, and I'm hearing some scuttlebutt that teams are cutting back. Teams aren't doing as many competitions possibly this year as they've done in the past. Is so far this year, have you seen that in your sales, or are you pretty consistent on where you're at?
You've
increased.
Yeah, but I will say our reach within the country has changed a little bit.
Hank, what I was getting at was, you guys are shipping product. Is everything like overnight, 2-day FedEx, something like that? Yeah, I know. I'm on it.
Shipping perishables is a contact sport.
Yep.
You talk to anyone who does it. We all compare horror stories, but for the most part, it goes smooth.
We try
1 or 2 days on shipping. It's also it depends on the time of year. I mean, if someone in South Dakota wants something in the middle of winter, you can send it ground. It doesn't matter, because however long it takes, it's sitting in a trailer outside overnight and it's cold out. So that's great. But you have the opposite problem in the teeth of the summer. And that's when, those occasional delays, there's you want to ruin my day. Just, let me go to my inbox on my computer and see, the shipment is being, I forget what the term is, but there's a, shipment delay.
Service delay. Yeah.
Right. And I'm looking at that going, oh boy, 24 more hours, I need that to last. I say I've become very religious since I started. I'm constantly asking a higher power to help me.
Yeah. Hey, whatever brings you around, whatever you get, use what you got to use.
That's right.
Churches will take every excuse. Yeah. So, Hank, Bob's got a good question written down over here. He's saying, with all the innovation and all the growth, how do you keep the tradition of your business that you established over the years as one of your high standards of metal over there?
How do you your standard is that you continue to sell quality items. I mean,
Right.
I feel very strongly that anyone who gets something from us needs to feel good about it, whether it's a comp customer or someone locally. We just went through Passover and Easter, which are big big prepared food holidays at Mister Brisket, in addition to raw items. And that's a lot of people are buying cooked sliced pans of brisket that we roast that aren't smoked.
Right.
They're getting some of the stuff that Aaron's doing. You want very much to make sure that each and every person feels good about what they get. I take that really seriously. When someone's having their holiday feast and they're using your business to provide some level of catering,
Sure.
That's a real compliment, and it's also an opportunity. And you want to make sure you do the best job you can under those circumstances. And the guys who work for me care, and we all care about doing that well. That's a source of pride, and obviously it's a good business practice.
Sure. Yeah. No. Good answer. Yeah. I didn't realize how big brisket was for Passover. That's a big,
I didn't.
That's a big staple in their.
Really? As a member of the Jewish faith, I can assure you that brisket has always been big in the Jewish community. And on the east side of Cleveland, you're in a large Jewish community around you.
Oh, okay. Great.
So, in fact, I had no idea about meat smoking. And I'll tell you a quick story. The very first guy that used to come into our shop to buy briskets to smoke was from Texas. His name was Cody Risen, and he had been an offensive lineman with the Cleveland Browns. And so he was, like in the 1990s, he would walk into our store and buy a brisket, and we were like, "What are you doing?" And he goes, "Well, I'm going to smoke it." And we were like, "What's that?" We had no idea. We thought, a big speckled roasting pan was the way to go.
Hank, I got one more question for you. I just want to. I noticed you do. You guys still doing the veterans thing?
Yeah, yeah. We every so often we will take a lunch, to the local VA. And provide for both veterans and the providers. We'll provide them with corned beef sandwiches. Oftentimes those are purchased in advance by customers. Sometimes we just do it ourselves. So before that, I used to send salamis overseas. That again, it was mostly customers purchasing them. That was problematic because you're shipping a dried out salami, and the problem isn't perishability. The problem is that the unit moves suddenly. These guys are in one spot, suddenly they go to another spot, and the stuff would come back to me months later if they had moved for some reason. So I decided that was difficult. I'd rather stay local and do sandwiches for vets here. But you always want to acknowledge the people who have done so much on your behalf, and let them know that you appreciate their efforts and their sacrifice.
Fantastic. That's just a great endeavor. It's just a great thing you guys are doing. Yeah. Really piqued my curiosity when I read that.
Where do you think you would like to be in, say, 20 years?
Me or Aaron?
You want to be alive.
Yeah,
alive.
20 years. Hopefully I'm retired in 20 years. So I'd like to see my business. I'd like to see this business still around and prospering. It's very difficult to predict the future. If there's anything I've learned in business, when my stepdad started the business, he did very well, and his whole thing was home delivery, and he had some big wholesale clients, and then he ran into a big recession in the early '90s, and the wholesale clients suddenly went away, and people's eating habits changed, and our business took a nosedive, and we got lucky. The food channel came around, the internet was helpful, and then the meat smoking craze was terrific. You got to ride waves. You got to keep up with trends and changes in lifestyle, and do the best you can. It isn't easy, that's for sure.
Yeah, we haven't talked about it at all, but you guys got a pretty extensive sandwich business going too. No, I mean I read some of these compliments and these reviews on your sandwiches are just like everybody says they're off the chain. Has that always been a thing?
Since 2006. We started doing sandwiches. Again, that was a situation where I went to my stepdad, who was still running the business at the time, and I said, I really think there's an opportunity here for us to get into this end of the business. But what I really was noticing was just prepared food in general. I mean, you walk into any, higher end grocery store or a Whole Foods or places like that, let's say in the, around 2010, and what you started to notice was the huge amount of prepared food that they were selling, because there was more profit in it, and people are busier and they want someone to take care of it for them. And so, what I'm really noticed is every holiday we are doing more prepared food for people. And, having a guy like Aaron, and I've got this guy, Mike, who works for us, who's a terrific chef. I'm lucky to have guys who really know how to cook,
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So the sandwiches, we make very good brisket, very good corned beef, very good pastrami, and an excellent cheesesteak.
Yeah, I heard that one. What's the cheesesteak one? Is that Wagyu cheesesteak?
Yeah, it's shaved Wagyu ribeye.
Yeah, it looks good.
UPS is here.
Hold on. There's a Wheeler right there if you want.
You're paid about an hour. Yeah, I mean, the cheesesteaks, it's our, shaved Wagyu ribeye, caramelized onions, garlic mayo, Swiss cheese. So it's not a Philly cheesesteak, but it's our cheesesteak.
That's fine.
And it's good.
It is excellent.
I
What's
really like
what's the Mister Brisket sandwich? Because I saw a lot of that in the reviews.
So that was when I first started here. It's kind of what I would take home and make. So it's our roasted brisket, a little bit of the gravy we make from the au jus, caramelized onions. We call it tiger sauce, which is your horseradish and mayo, and Swiss cheese, and we grill it. So it's just it really shows off the gravy and the brisket really well for what we sell like in the roasting pan.
Sounds delicious.
Sure does. Sure does.
Yeah.
I just had lunch.
We just ate. I'm hungry.
I'll
You
make you
guys can
hungry
do a
again.
live podcast from here, and we'll make you lunch. Man.
Yeah, I love that idea.
And
All right.
All right, guys. Well, this was fantastic. I really appreciate the both of you taking time, middle of the day, running a business at the same time. the answering phones.
Yeah.
I love it.
It's
So I
our
appreciate
pleasure.
that.
It's always fun to answer questions. It's not, I enjoy talking about, the business and bragging about Aaron a little bit and, all that sort of good stuff. So,
All right, guys. Thanks
All
very
right,
much
thank
for
you.
an
Great talking to you.
awesome interview.
Yep. Have a good day.
Well, Bob, thanks again. That was a fantastic interview. you
Those
set
guys are
up.
amazing.
Oh,
Hank and Aaron, they're
great
just
guys.
nonstop. And am I right to think, Bob, that they like know their customer base, like they know the back
Yep.
of their hand?
Oh, you want me to text them right now? I'll
Yeah, you
text-
don't have to. You don't have to go that far, but it just seems they're so in tune to their customers. It's amazing. Like they're not too concerned about the next guy that comes through the door. They're more concerned about the repeat customer and the people that they consistently make happy with what they
I
provide.
mean, he remembered that order.
That's
that
crazy.
I placed. That was like
How
2
long
years ago.
2 years
That
ago.
was like 2 years ago.
That's great customer service, right
Yeah.
there. I'll tell you.
And the recovery he made,
Yeah.
you know, for that little faux pas.
No, that was great. Thanks again, Hank and Aaron. Best of luck to you. I know our co-competitors that we see at these competitions will continue to shop your goods because you guys do a terrific job, from what we understand. And we might be looking for some specialty cuts to provide
We'll
to
see.
our audience.
I mean,
Maybe
if they
yeah.
come through with the specialty cuts, they're going to be.
Yeah.
They're legendary already, but
yeah,
they'll
absolutely,
be legendary on the show. Let's face that.
for sure.
Yep.
All right, so I guess we're going to go from here. We're going to do some barbecue news.
That's right.
Bob, you were recently came back from the Southern New England barbecue competition.
Yep, the Southern New England Barbecue Throwdown.
Throwdown, there you
that's
go.
it.
Yes.
Which was sponsored by the Humphreys there.
Well,
Humphreys.
no, it was the organizer was Jeremy Garrett
Yes, he was
of
the producer.
Campground Barbecue.
Yep.
Campground.
Love those events.
Yeah.
I mean, the amenities. I can't imagine. The weather.
How was the weather on Saturday?
It
I noticed there was
sucked.
snow on my front lawn
It sucked.
Friday
The weather-
morning.
The weather sucked. so I can only imagine the events if like June and July, and you have a nice pool there. And
Sure.
oh yes, but so Saturday was tough. Saturday, everybody would agree, was tough.
Yep.
Sunday was much better. We did much better as well as a team. We go with the weather.
Yeah, because it affects your cooks, right? You got to struggle keeping a constant temperature on your smokers.
Well, it's a constant temperature at the smokers. It's a consistent temperature with yourself.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. Well, if you're miserable, you're miserable.
Yeah. I mean,
It's funny. I was telling Tommy when we were thinking about you guys. It's like I would wake up at 6 a.m. and I look and I see like a little bit of snow on my windowsill. So I'm like, And first thing I went to Facebook and I'm looking, and there's your competitors putting films up at 3 a.m. It's pitch black, snow's
snow.
coming down on the smokers. I'm like, oh, these poor
it looks like
bastards.
December,
Yeah.
like mid-December.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
So how did you do? How did others do? Who took the grand championship?
the field was loaded.
Yeah.
All right. And
What do you mean?
Well, when Brad comes into town from getting basted,
Oh, yeah.
you
Yeah,
you
you
just know that, okay, we're gonna be handed it. And we gave it our best shot. We gave it our best shot. I'm just gonna talk about Big Bobby's Q and our results.
Okay. How'd you do?
So we didn't fare too well on Saturday. However, we did get a surprise call in pork.
Nice.
4th place.
Excellent.
With a pork collar from Mister Brisket.
Oh, sweet.
Yeah.
Well, there you go.
Right?
It all comes around,
So
doesn't
we
it?
had 4th place on Saturday in pork, and then on Sunday it was 10th place in ribs. Another
that's
product
huge.
from
You're being so modest about it. How many teams were in there? Weren't there like
Well, I think
25 teams, 30 teams?
No, the first day was 30, and I think second day was 35.
Oh, that's fantastic.
And you pulled 4th and 10th. Fantastic, brother.
Yeah, so
Proud of you.
yeah.
Well done.
Charlie, you were busy, right? You were down Myrtle Beach.
I was, my, and I'm going to embarrass you, and I don't care. My son,
Yes.
for my 60th birthday, I know I look 68,
You're
but I'm only
60?
60. You're catching up, buddy.
Hit the gong.
Anyway. Yeah, he decided he wanted to take a trip, so we'd never been to Myrtle Beach, and some friends in the boxing world were going down there. So we decided to tag along, had a great time. And so you and my son, who I already beat him for this, surprised me by buying me a nice steak dinner at this place called Thoroughbred's Chop House. Yes. I brought you the birthday card so you can take a look at it, that they see it, and me.
This is the first class over there. Those guys really went over the edge, huh?
I mean, the quality was fantastic. The service, they make you feel like you're the only one there, and it's an old school, like, dark wood steakhouse. Obviously, Thoroughbreds has got the equestrian theme all over the place, and we just had a phenomenal. That kicked off the whole week.
Yeah.
We did have some barbecue excursions. One I will tell you about is Hog Heaven, which is about 20 miles south of Myrtle Beach in a place called Pawleys Island. And it's a barbecue buffet. It's a very small buffet. Maybe the food buffet is maybe like, this table.
Yeah.
And about 10 items. But the pork was first rate, the brisket first rate. They had a sliced barbecue pork, all the accoutrements, the greens and the mac and cheese, and it was all fantastic. But my God, the fried chicken was just awesome. And you remember Big T's?
Yes.
Okay, remember Tommy and the Butcher and I were raving about their fried chicken in there, and this was, along the same lines, just amazing fried chicken, and a great experience, and just the kind of place we always look for, no frills.
Yeah.
Just get in there,
just
have
good
great food, and great service, and the people were so nice, so.
Terrific.
And we had a great time. I brought you home something from Lana at the Pepper Palace, and you can take a look at that, or we can do an unwrapping next show, whatever you want to do.
Yeah, let's do an unwrapping next show.
But
great.
Lana was great, and she's from the area, and so I kicked off, told her we had the podcast, and she's really excited to see this episode. So
good.
But yeah, the Pepper Palace at a place called Broadway on the Beach down at Myrtle Beach was a great time.
Cool.
Yep.
Fantastic.
So I made it back alive.
Great. And now we're going to look forward to your 61. Time marches on, and more more barbecue. Yeah, for sure. But so that sounds great. And well, thanks, guys. Thanks for another great show this week, Bob. Thanks for all your efforts in setting up the interview with Mr. Brisket.
Yes, thank you, Bob. That was amazing.
That was terrific. And I wish everyone well, and stay safe, and eat more barbecue. Peace.
Adios.